Hello and welcome to this week's look at action and stunts on film and television. How are you? I trust you are well. Thank you for joining me once again. If you haven't seen Mission Impossible Final Reckoning yet, please do. I know I've said this in a couple of posts on the social media of late, but it is one of those movies that deserves a big screen viewing. Yes, technology is such these days that you are going to get a great deal from it when you watch it on your big screen at home, when the Blu-ray comes out, or whether it's streamed or whatever the situation is. But you are not going to get the same experience without that big screen look. It is designed and filmed for the big screen. And I was really looking forward to this. I've looked forward to all of the Mission Impossible movies over the years. They have all provided something that has lit a little fire under me, and that little excitement that you get. And I think, oh, this is so good. And it's a substitute. Obviously, it's a substitute for Bond, and you wouldn't have had Ethan Hunt even, and the Mission Impossible pictures without Bond. That goes without saying. There are moments in these pictures, they are so Bond, you'd think they were taken directly from an old script or maybe a new idea for a script that didn't get round to being done. So they are fascinating. And as you will know, watching this channel over the years, you'll know that I've had a bit of an on-off relationship with Tom. I admire the man as an actor. I didn't really get the fascination with Tom Cruise as an actor until probably the first Mission Impossible picture. I was sold on that. Of course, that was his first producing job as well, and he was able to deliver a great story, well cast, and edge of your seat stuff. And it is one of those movies, a great director too in Brian De Palma, and it is one of those movies that you can go back to time and time again and still get excited about. And they do that with all of the Mission Impossible pictures, well, maybe with the exception of Mission Impossible 2, or the John Woo movie, as I like to call it. I always found that it was just a little too off the scale to be the follow-up. You've got Brian De Palma with a really classy, smooth-looking espionage movie with lots of action delivered within it, but there's great setups, there's wonderful situations. And then you've got John Woo, who primarily is an action director, goes in, throwing the kitchen sink at everything, slow-mos everything. There are fight scenes in it which are a bit overly long. There are scenes that run overly long. But it is a John Woo movie. It is what it is. If you're a John Woo fan, you will like Mission Impossible 2. I'm not the biggest fan. I think then they picked up again from 3 onwards, and that certainly was where I was excited about those movies. And over the last 30 years, I mean, they really have provided a great sideline to the Bond movies. And as the gaps between Bond movies have got greater, the Mission Impossible movies have filled those gaps along the way and have allowed the audience to travel on this roller coaster ride. And again, as I say, me and Tom, we've not seen eye to eye for some time. I appreciate that he's the producer of the movies. I am still under the impression that as the producer of the movie, as the star of the movie, there are things that you just shouldn't be doing from an action point of view. The stunt team are there to keep you safe, technology is such these days that you don't really need to be hanging onto the side of an aircraft or running around the outside of a building when there are people who can do it for you. And we have also had the discussion about his doubles and the fact that Casey O'Neill has been his stunt double for many, many years, does all the testing, does all the bits and pieces before so that Tom can simply step into that role knowing everything's been tested to the last detail, it's all safe and sound, and he can get in there. So I do take on board to a point what's going on, and I think this movie more than anything else, this final chapter, and I don't like the phrase final chapter because it gives the impression there won't be any more, and I would like there to be more, but unlike the Bond movies where you take the character, change the actor, keep the stories going, right, which has been very successful over 60 plus years. With this over 30 years, you take Tom Cruise out of the equation and replace him with somebody else, it's not really going to, I don't think it'll work with the audience. I appreciate that there are actors out there who maybe would take on a separate role, characters already established within IMF who could lead their own team, but I don't think it would work. So as much as it pains me, I believe that this is probably going to be the last picture, the final reckoning. Tom himself says and has accepted the fact, look, he's getting to a certain age. He's over 60, but he's in better condition than any 5 or 6 of us, I would say, of similar age. And this movie, genuinely, and I'm not giving any spoilers away because it's in the trailer, and I don't really want to do that, but I think it's important that you see this movie on the big screen. We've all seen the red plane, yellow plane, the biplane sequence, right? That was filmed in 2022 in South Africa. It made both planes, particularly the one where they're having to do maneuvers where the planes are coming in together. Tom makes transfers from one to the other. 4,000 flights they made, 2,000 of which were without Tom. Right, so they've had to bring all these flights in together. They've had to work out detail to the last millisecond. Timing-wise, everything has to be absolutely perfect. Tom, as a skydiver, as an action man, again, he's done hundreds and thousands probably of jumps over the years and has got himself into a situation where he is better qualified than maybe some of the professionals. And I say professionals in that other capacity, but professionals who are there to do that job. So he is very, very qualified indeed. Yes, he's hanging on to the wing of a biplane. Yes, it looks magnificent. It looks incredible. He is wired on, and there's behind-the-scenes footage. We'll show you some of that. But there is footage where he is wired on, and CGI simply takes those wires out. That's what it's there for. And I think using CGI in that capacity, I think, is extremely important because it assists, doesn't take anything away from it. It adds to it. You are taking that cabling out. That cabling is massively important to have, and Tom is safe as houses. Except, and I do take this on board, and he did exactly the same thing with the what was it, the big Hercules? Was it Ghost Protocol, the big Hercules, where he's hanging onto the side of it as the plane's taking off? Don't worry, he's wired on, he's perfectly safe. Yeah, but the plane could crash. You know, that's physically a concern. The plane could crash, and you could lose the actor. He was safely tied onto it, but sadly, in the accident, we lost him. That's a consideration, and you know that was a serious worry. But he is wired on to the red plane, the yellow plane, whatever the situation is, whatever the flying is, and also because it's a very small space, the camera crew are not up with him. So in those shots where you see Tom, and he's locked off, on those shots where you see Tom in the plane on his own, he is firstly flying the plane. He is secondly pulling focus on the camera, so he's camera operating as well. And those moments where he has to get in and out of the plane when there's clearly nobody in it, he then is flying the plane, steps out of the plane, then gets back into the plane to do the sequence, acting and doing all of that. It's absolutely remarkable. So you take all of that into consideration, and this talk of CGI, and there is an amount of CGI in the picture, as there is in all of these mission movies. Does it detract from anything? No. As I say, I think it enhances what's already there, and that's what you want from good CGI. In those early days of CGI, you could see that technology was as good as it got back then, and it looked like it might be a problem because it's not really adding anything, it's making it look weird. This is as pretty perfect as you possibly can imagine. And there are moments, and there is a moment. Again, we will have seen some of the footage already, so I'm not giving anything away, but there is a parachute sequence, and there is a sequence where the parachute is engulfed in flames. It must be got rid of, and the second chute deployed. Okay? So, in my capacity doing this show, when I'm not doing this show and doing other bits and pieces, I am also a stunt advisor for the Guinness Book of World Records. And I received a communication from them to say, would you check something for us? We think that there is a possibility of an entry for Tom Cruise in the new book. And we believe it might be surrounding the parachute jump and the engulfing in flames of the parachute. Would you check it and see if that's been done before or if it's been done to the extent? And what they were looking to do was to verify to see how many times Tom had done this and how extraordinary a feat it is, worthy of its own entry in the Guinness Book of World Records. Normally, when you see actors in there, it's often Jackie Chan is in there a great deal because he broke many, many boundaries and created many records along the way. The first for this, the first for that. Kate Winslet, I think, is in there as well for holding her breath, the longest for a particular project. So she's in there as well. And then there are maybe movies for extras, the most amount of extras in one scene, the most amount of people in one scene, etc., etc. But it turned out that a lot of people thought that the flames in this shot, in this sequence, were CGI. And it turns out that they weren't. So here's the deal. Tom wears a parachute. The parachute is doused in flammable liquid. It is then packed as you would pack a parachute into the casing. It's put on his back. He has a system which is built into the parachute itself from the guide ropes, the guidelines. So he falls, deploys the chute, ignites the chute, then has to act, then cut away the chute and deploy the secondary parachute, the reserve chute. And that's an awful lot to do. Also because there will be there's a sequence there where he is the camera operator as well. There's a rig. You've seen the back behind the scenes footage. There's a rig that he wears where he is spinning and he's wearing this camera rig to get a POV shot of him as he falls. So there's an awful lot going on. He's got to jump, deploy, ignite, cut away, and deploy again, and act in the middle of all of that. And you think, Jesus, that is some job. And a lot of people thought that those flames were CGI flames. They're not. They are real. They ignited the parachute every single time. And this is where we get to the Guinness Book of World Records entry, because it's got to be a remarkable state of affairs to get you into a particular level whereby it's considered for an entry, right? So he has made 16 separate jumps to get, 4-5 seconds of footage? 16 separate jumps. Absolutely staggering. Staggering. There are things on this movie that will take your breath away. And there's a lot of people going, well, it's a bit long. Movie's a bit long. Drags on a bit. There are nods and winks to this film and nods and winks to that character and bits and pieces. But you could get rid of this and you'd still have a great movie if you got rid of this first 45 minutes or this piece. That was a bit long. I went in with my father because we've seen all of the Mission Impossible movies at the cinema. It's one of those things that, you want to try and... I try and take my dad to as many movies as possible. He's 90 now. And more importantly, we've always liked movies. We've always been big fans of action adventure. And the Mission pictures are really great examples of these. And so we have seen them at the cinema since the first movie back in 1996. So we've gone, the new one came out, I took him, and it didn't feel like, to us, it did not feel like a long movie. It's nearly 3 hours long, 2 hours 50 something. It didn't feel like a long movie. It absolutely sailed by. Why? Because I thought the pacing was perfect. I also thought the action drove everything along to such a rate that you were never able to take a breather, to take a moment, and to consider what else was going on in the world. You were completely encased in that story, in that scene. And they do that on so many different occasions in this picture. It is this scene, followed by this one. There's this action sequence and that one. You will, again, I'm not giving anything away here, but you will have seen in the trailer, and there are some making of bits and pieces if you want to go and explore them on YouTube. But there is a sequence that is underwater. It is staggering. Absolutely staggering. And there's a great deal of actual footage, real locations, and there is a huge amount of CG. And you would really struggle to find which was which. They work seamlessly together, and it is spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. If you see one movie this year, please make it this one. Really, it's absolutely stunning from start to finish. It will be a great shame if there are no further Mission pictures. We understand the reasons why. They are iconic. The music is iconic. I would say even, and again, I'm a huge James Bond fan, but when that music kicks in, bum 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 bum, something happens. Something happens, and we've had lots of arrangements over the years from different composers, and they all do something slightly different with it, and they give it a little extra something. And when you hear that and it drives along, it's magnificent. And it's if that's the way it is, if that's the way they're going, and they're saying, we're done, thank you very much, I hope you've enjoyed the ride, then yes, we've enjoyed the ride. It's been absolutely spectacular. Will there be anything to match it? Will this be an opportunity for Bond to finally get its finger pulled out and get some serious action adventure on the big screen. Well, we will hope. We have our fingers crossed for that. But you will have seen some of the footage that we've been showing here. Remarkable stuff. Incredible work by Wade Eastwood and the team. Wade, of course, who started out as a performer in South Africa and did his fair share of bits and pieces on Bond. World Is Not Enough was probably the first movie that we saw him on a regular basis, because he was doubling Pierce in the Q-boat and was also in the office sequence at the start. He was the counterbalance for Bond coming down on the blind elastic, very long piece of elastic. That it's really, if I'd done that, it would have snapped. That's just the way it is. That's the magic of the movies. But so he's from starting where he has to do what he's done now, magnificent. And hats off to everybody in the stunt team who is responsible. Absolutely stunning from start to finish. Please go and see it. All right, go and see it. I really urge you to do so. I'll be back next week with more of the same. By the time you see this, I will have popped over to Paris. I'm going to Paris for a few days to unwind and take in some Parisian flair. And then I'll be back, hopefully, with a little recharge of batteries. We are taking a little break towards the end of the month because I'm going away. It's holiday time, so I'm going off to Greece, going to Corfu. So it would be lovely to go over there and catch up with some Bond locations, I think is one of the things I would like to do. In the meantime, apart from just everything else that goes on in Corfu, I went there many, many moons ago, and literally nearly 40 years ago. And it's beautiful. I loved it, and I haven't been back since. So we're going, and hopefully to have a wonderful time. And but next week we'll be back with something else. And in the meantime, why don't you subscribe? Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. There's a link. There's a thing at the bottom of the page down here in the notes, which is the Linktree link. Click on that, and it will give you all of the social medias, and all of the podcast is on there, and all the bits and pieces. So subscribe and follow to all of those. And, well, we'll see you around next time, shall we? Until then, it's bye for now.